Pure slander. What are we slandering? Her mom, probably. Would you like to respond to these allegations, plaintiff? Yes, Your Honor. Mother's name. I won't stand for it being dragged through the mud. Well, look who's finally decided to show up. Don't think that sweet act will, help you now. Very well. You're allowed to testify if you wish. The plaintiff will do nothing of the sort. There's no need to honor any of these claims with a response. You serious? You're not even going to challenge them? Again? It seems I've bet on the wrong horse. What did I hire you for? All of her claims are predictable. This trial is still absolutely within my control. That's why I forbid you from saying anything now. It's unnecessary. You keep saying that, but you only keep losing ground and letting the defendant create a mess. Losing streaks. I hate them, and I hate messes. It's time to clean this up. To testify now would be conceding there is something that merits a response. I won't permit it. How do I put this? You're fired. Too bad. I'm your client. I get to do what I want. You only get to do what I allow. The unfathomable ignorance. Let the record state I advise my client against this course of action. Not the kind of power dynamic you're used to, huh? Very good. Let's hear your testimony, plaintiff. Victoria was uncharacteristically wise to advise you against this, Miss Holden. By entering the stand, you are opening yourself up for attack. But you're a fan of risky moves, aren't you? Well, you better be ready. Susan Holden. Redundant, but I will state my name for the court. You can thank me for everything in this auction being impeccably clean. Mother entrusted me with getting rid of any dirt in this building. Don't think you'll last longer than the rest. Oh boy, alright, let's do this. What you got, girl? Stain cleaning. You have no proof for any of your speculation. My mother simply defended herself. The end. Wait, how is this even a testimony? All you did was deny everything. That was certainly very concise. Do you know what the first rule of poker, Miss Chase? All players draw 2 cards? Poker face. It's to never give the other players more information than necessary. My point. There is no need to let any details pollute it. A clean, straightforward rebuttal for a clean, straightforward trial. Nothing more. Well, you are not wrong that Miss Chase's accusations have been mostly speculative. There may have been plausible points, but it still presupposed things with no real evidence. Exactly that. Bluff called. That's all I need to do. That's sorted out. Can we focus back on things we actually proved? Like who shot my mother? Not so fast, Miss Holden. I still get to cross-examine you. Of course. You would insist. That's always a sure bet going by the trial so far. I know you're betting that I'll give you something that to derail things with again. Give up. You're in my house, and the house always wins. I know how to keep my testimony clean. Thanks, but I'll take my chances. I have to work with anything I'll get anyways. Alright, let's see what happens here. You can't just call all of it baseless and be done with it. You bet. Nothing you said has any factual basis behind it. Actual proof? I saw none that shows my mother was planning to murder you. Made up. You painted a narrative to suit your needs. Okay, I might not be easily able to prove that much. You're selling my argument a bit short. At least some of it had a factual basis. Bluff called. Can you even name one thing that wasn't mere conjecture? Which part was backed up by hard facts? Yeah. We are literally playing cards with it. The victim brought us the spray. Victim knew I was a journalist. Victim conspired with criminals. Victim might not have connected the dots. Victim brought the spray. There's one thing that is actually confirmed by, Not so fast. Victim did take the cleaning spray to the scene. Witness confirmed as much. Fingerprints also confirmed that you took it away. Something you have yet to comment on at all. My theory was entirely founded on that fact. If you want to dismiss it, you will have to provide an explanation for that part. Think this counts as a proof of anything? It's just some cleaning agent that doesn't prove any intentions on its own. Well, that's true. The defendant does have a point. Ah, now the flashing went away. It would help your case to explain what that spray was doing there and why you took it. Fine. How do I put this? Hello? I saw it protrude from her pocket and took hold of it without thinking. My mother. I just lost her. In case you forgot. I felt I needed something to hold on to. Just going with Victoria's excuse. Figures. And do you have any idea why she brought it with her in the first place? Who knows? She probably thought it could help her defend herself. It might not be specifically made for it, but spraying someone's face would still startle them. Is that quite the stretch? She didn't even end up using it. How is it any more of a stretch than your idea? Is anybody who is carrying some cleaning agent a criminal now? Context does matter. Please settle down, you two. For now, both of these appear to be equally plausible explanations. Well, I would like the plaintiff to add her version to the testimony. That is reasonable enough. Fine then. Same odds. This won't improve yours at all. I wonder if we can make all of the arguments. And we have to pick which one produces a contradiction. Let's see where this leads. Questioning the fact she never even used it apparently won't get me far, so... Wasn't that a bit excessive? She already had a knife on hand, after all. Better to be too cautious than dead. That's what she used to say. I suppose Mr. Gart told me about how she was practically holed up in here all the time. Concession. How unexpected. Or are you just trying to appear unbiased? No, I wanted to see. I wanted to see if you could confirm what he said. It's good to have a solid foundation before you start picking it apart. So your mother has supposedly been cautious for a while. But I clearly couldn't have been the reason for that caution. I'm not even arguing that this was premeditated. Yes, she has generally been cautious. It didn't directly relate to you. You happy? The important part is that this meant she liked to be overprepared. Hence the spray. It could have just been a burglar, but it could also have been bait to lure her into a trap. Mother likely considered her decisions from that angle, maximizing odds. Then, how come she didn't bring anyone else along when confronting me? That would have, by far, been the safest course of action. Implication being, maybe she just didn't want to endanger anyone else. It's a weird point in her behavior. Okay then, is that all you wanted to say? Guess that won't be enough to put a dent in her version of events. Still, we established the victim had supposedly been generally cautious. Which leaves me with a couple more things to ask about, like... Well then, what was the actual reason for her caution? Obvious answer. The curse of this building. Hold up. She believed in that? In Reapers? No chance. Still, there had to be some explanation for those murders that happened several years ago. For example, a lunatic who, for some reason, went after the people that had visited this building. Easy bet. That Dr. Lead associated with some crazy killers. Natural theory. That's why Mother decided to no longer allow visits to the tower, except for maintenance workers. And why she rarely left the tower, only going out when necessary. Checks out on the surface, at least. Was any of this really that important, Miss Chase? We can add more statements. I mean, why not? Better add more statements. Victim had generally been concerned about her safety. This is of unfathomable importance, Your Honor. Is your brain even doing anything? Or are you, like, just mindlessly adding everything? Why are you complaining? This is vital supporting information for the plaintiff's argument. Well, I suppose it does put the victim's actions into perspective. Somewhat. Please add it to the testimony. I knew you were going to try and create a mess again. It won't work, though. Your speculation will hit its natural dead end sooner or later. Serial killer obsessed with the building. Can you give us some examples of the precautions the victim took? Huh. No thanks. I think I've stated enough. If I so much as mention anything, you will drag things out by adding another irrelevant point. Enough with the endless raising. It's time to call it. Figured her cooperation would be limited. If I wanted her to say more, I might need to bring up a specific precaution the victim took. There's two approaches here. Maybe I already know some of these other precautions. I could also put myself into her shoes and take an educated guess. There should be some obvious steps to take if you suspect a killer might be coming for you. The victim? I'm not going to entertain any guesses. We've heard quite enough speculation that wasn't backed by any evidence. Being extra difficult, huh? Well, but conversely, if my guess has some supporting evidence, you'll answer? If indeed. There's my shot, then. Do I have any evidence that could reasonably have been on one of those precautions? And there's the key. We have tower diagram notes. Second floor. Metal detector. Wiretaps. You could present the diagram and see what happens. I mean, we'll try it, see what happens. Was this one of the victim's other precautions? Where'd you go? Where'd you go? There you are. Correct. The visitor had to provide ID and was checked with the metal detector at the entrance. I presume that was one of these safety measures. Everyone here was subjected to that, so I won't deny it. Otherwise, you would have? There's really not much more to say about it. You can stop anyone suspicious at the entrance. Anyone inside the tower is safe. That's also why there's a mechanism to block the elevator. In case anyone tries to force their way inside. Conveniently useful to trap us all in here as well. Your mother was so concerned about that. Wasn't holding the auction here kind of a terrible idea? No choice. It had to be held sooner or later. The guy died 5 years ago, Supposedly, at least. Besides, remember that the 2 people who were killed died alone in their homes. Modus operandi. It wouldn't have matched the killers to commit a crime at such a public event. So holding the auction with these measures in place seemed reasonable enough. Of course, hindsight is 20/20. Well, I'm not the killer. Or any killer at all, to be clear. In any case, would you mind adding the security check to your testimony? My opinion. How do I put it into words? I'm going to strangle you. I'm going to strangle you. Is that what it's going to take to make you stop? We're going to talk about how the victim was totally innocent and not planning to murder me. Then, looking at whatever these measures she took support that intention is important. Whether these measures she took support that intention is important. I'm not necessarily a fan of that reasoning, Miss Chase. I'll allow this statement to be added, but you better not press it just to ask for another. No worries, I like where I'm at right now. Close to something that doesn't track with our oh so cautious victim, I think. I'm gonna press... I'm gonna press this and try to get something else added. I'm gonna add the shit out of this. What were the specific instructions given to the guard? No idea. I have nothing else to say about that. Honestly, how would I know what exactly my mother told me to do? Alright, be that way. The purpose of this check truly was to keep the inside of the tower safe. No, it was to only allow criminals inside. What else? Go figure. I literally just explained it. Are you implying this is somehow suspicious as well? And what if I was? Then you better have a better hand to present than I don't believe it. Well, should I take her up on that challenge? Let's do it, why not? Yeah, something is seriously faulty about this whole security check. At least if the purpose was to keep the tower a safe place as you claim it was. Impressive words. Now try again with some proof. If you think this is a bluff, you're mistaken. This evidence demonstrates everything that's wrong with the security check. My gun! Can anyone tell me what this is? Why, that's your gun. The one you shot Mrs. Holden with. Why, yes. Exactly, Your Honor. Well, whether I shot her isn't proven yet, but that's not my point. Tell me, did Mr. Guard's security check spot this gun? Of course it did. There's no chance of smuggling that past the metal detector. And don't think you can deny it just because Mr. Guard is dead now. His logs still document that you brought this gun. Thank you, Miss Holden. But you seem to misunderstand what my problem is. Well, aware that there's no contradiction here. The gun was found during the check. The real issue is that absolutely nothing was done about it. Huh? If the purpose of this check was to ensure safety for the event, tell me, what would have been the logical thing to do? If you saw one of the guests bring a weapon, I certainly would prefer they didn't enter the venue with it. Absolutely. This entire incident could have been avoided if the guard had just not allowed guns inside. You like throwing dirt on the dead, don't you? Is this really the time to call him incompetent? No, I don't think he can be faulted at all. Say what you want about his attitude. Mr. Guard always knew exactly what he'd been instructed to do. If he didn't confiscate any weapons, that means he's never been told to do so. The fact he kept logs suggests as much. He was clearly only supposed to take notes. Not to obstruct anything. That is what I take issue with here. Oh, please. Who even cares about the exact details of the check? The purpose of the check was safety, then just taking notes makes zero sense. Anyone could have still brought a weapon and caused havoc. Regardless. It's not the sort of check that someone worried about crazy serial killers would be satisfied with. It does seem a little carefree, I have to admit. How do I respond to that? So what? What do you think this is proving? It proves that the victim clearly could not have been that worried about getting killed. Victim clearly could not have been worried about getting killed. Oh. How would I demonstrate the fatuousness of this argument to you? Don't you realize the nature of this security check contradicts your own theory as well? Really now, that should be good. If her only concern was murdering me, there's no reason for her to care about how effective the check was. If anything, it would have been better to keep it lax. More potential suspects. You complete Philistine, how far does your ignorance extend? You being allowed to bring your gun would have been exactly what got her killed instead. Why would she let you keep your weapon instead of ensuring you are an easy target? That's a good point. She might just not have thought that I'd actually be that armed. It's not like she could have told Mr. Guard to disarm me specifically. By the time I showed up, it was too late to change his instructions. Also, all of that is assuming that a plan existed before I even came to the tower. That's not what I claim. She only decided to kill me after she recognized me inside. And there is no way she could have known I'd be here. Tell me then, would she not consult the guard's logs to make sure you were truly Aurelia Chase? Would she therefore not be aware of the fact that you brought a gun? What rational actor would still choose to attack someone who is carrying a superior weapon? That's exactly what she seems to have attempted, though. Perhaps she was just confident in her ability to ambush me. We can as well postulate that the victim thought a public event would be safe enough. Previous victims of this supposed serial killer were all found alone in their home. Mrs. Holden may simply have been confident that the killer would not act overtly. Seems a little this is ridiculous. We can keep giving each other perpetual checks for eternity in this realm. She's not wrong. She's not wrong. It certainly seems this has reached a stalemate. Both sides claim the security check does not fit into the opposing narrative. And while attempts were made to justify each position, none of them were convincing. Consequently, it also isn't a refutation of the plaintiff's position. Please return to the cross-examination. Still not enough, huh? Fine, I'll keep this up all day if I have to. Let's press this. That's far from the end. That went well beyond simply defending herself. She's the one that went after me. You're the one that committed a crime first. Tired point. Well, she still could have chosen a less confrontational approach. Castle doctrine. The law is on my side. No matter what you say, my mother was well within her rights to confront you. No easy way to argue this one, as expected. I have to make sure my theory doesn't get dismissed first. He's trying to keep this as vague as possible. Makes my course of action obvious. I just have to force her to get more specific. I press her with some pointed questions, she'll be forced to explain, like it or not. Still, she's too much on her guard. Doubt I'll get her to say something straight up contradictory. Just keep focusing on making his mother's actions look as suspicious as possible. I might be able to tip the scales just enough. Alright, I have a save here. Let's see if any of the other stuff will take me any other directions. See if there's another route we can progress here. Conspired with criminals. The victim cut deals with criminals can be easily looked up. Tell me, what are the chances that someone rolls a 1 10 times in a row? That's my point. It's statistically unlikely the victim just happened to house that many criminals. There will always be someone who's unlucky. People have been hit by lightning twice, you know. Proves nothing. The plaintiff is correct. We must be careful not to put too much weight on statistical probability. It's unlikely for the average person to wind up in a murder case, yet here you are. Well, fuck you then. I'll try the 2 points, just to see if there's a branch here. The victim knew about me. That was just backed up by the newspaper found on her desk. Another place you had no business being in. Can you prove that she actually bothered looking up your name? Odds are she was only interested in the article because it was about Van Lead. Fair, but it proves she had the chance to look into me. Can't prove it though, so we're gonna get penalized. Yeah, speculation. Big relief. The court sees this for the baseless slander it is. Rewind. Let's review the other choices we had here. Curse. Curse added the security measures. The card proved to make admit that much. One thing, that's a mistake, yet no pattern. If you think I took anything else, you're free to place your bets. That's a bit unreasonable. If you took anything incriminating, you'd probably have hidden it. With you mostly in control of the investigation, how are we supposed to find it? Good luck! Figures. I know of anything else she could have taken, I should probably just present it here. Probably won't work unless there's hard proof for it, though. This spray had a witness and fingerprints backing me up. I need something on the same level again. Well, she's the one who probably could have taken it. Probably won't quite cut it. The first I actually pushed that idea. It's a curiosity. Fingerprint details, Melanie Holden. Her fingerprints, Susan's are not on this. So we can't accuse her of holding the second gun. Small face in the dust. What other precautions would she have taken that we can point out? We already presented the tower diagram. We can't use it, and the tower diagram gave us the security check. We can't really use it here. So, where do we go? I'm gonna try and reason this out. We can point out the security check. Are there any other problems with the security check that we can point out? Head count, security, go back to precautions. False. Maybe we do ask about this. Maybe if we do ask about the second gun here, the precautions, the second gun, this gun that the other crime was committed with, could it have belonged to the victim? Is there any reason to assume that? Well, Victoria predictably skimmed over this part completely, but Mrs. Holden's fingerprints were found on this gun, suggesting that she handled it at some point. She couldn't have been Mr. Guard's killer for obvious reasons. Which begs the question when she touched it. There's another problem with this gun, of course. How did it get into the building in the first place? Guard wasn't aware of any other weapon ever finding its way into the building, but he also mentioned that Mrs. Holden was exempt from any checks, being his boss and all. The simplest way to explain the presence of this gun is if she's the one that brought it into the building. Certainly, but why would she do such a thing? That's literally the point. Remember, we were talking about safety precautions. If I was concerned someone was after me, I'd definitely consider buying a gun. Well, that's actually exactly why I brought mine, in fact. It was her gun. Happy? That was easy. This proves how irrelevant it is, really. My lawyer didn't mention this to trick you into making a bad argument with it. She bet you tried on any variety of wild claims to connect it to your case. Just because my mother's fingerprints were there. You were not permitted to share that. Cute. Well, let's note down that fact first. Alright. And secondly, please add this to your testimony. You've got to be messing with me. You might call it irrelevant, but this gun ultimately ended up being involved in a crime. It's not the crime we're talking about, though. Fair. Still, this is another important point to understand the victim's true intentions. Unfortunately, the defendant's argument has some merit. You will have to add it. You know what a gambler's fallacy is? It's thinking each irrelevant statement you add somehow improves your odds. This is definitely the last one. Got it? We'll see about that. This new fact. I feel like it's pretty telling. Let's see what I can do with it. Okay, so why didn't she have it with her? Can you explain to me why? No chance. The statement doesn't get any clearer than this. Ideally, Ricard, you'll try to grab them all. Empty stack. I'm allowed to ask you questions. This statement already was the result of a question. You think you can keep this loop going forever? Yes. A shameless exploitation. That's why you've made this cross-examination at this point. Then what am I supposed to do if there's something genuinely off about this? Miss Chase, if so, you are allowed to present evidence that highlights the problem. Alright. There might be no direct contradiction, but maybe there's something pretty weird about the victim's actions here? Oh shit. Anyways, let's present evidence. In that case, I do have an issue to point out. The victim brought a gun for self-defense. That makes her actions illogical considering she brought a knife with her to the crime scene. This statement actually makes no sense whatsoever. Recall the facts of the case. I showed up at the tower and roamed about. I could just have been nosy. I could also have been that serial killer she was supposedly worried about. The victim wouldn't have known for sure, and you said she preferred to play it safe. So, put yourself in the victim's shoes before this confrontation. What do you do? Would this be the time to bring out, I don't know, the gun you specifically bought for this kind of situation? Wait, but the victim decided to rush into things with nothing but this knife and some spray. It didn't stop to fetch the most effective, logical thing to bring. Or she wasn't even carrying it on her. She left it downstairs for some... That's probably the more telling fact here, that she wasn't even carrying it on her. What, did she buy the gun just to let it catch dust? This whole story doesn't track at all. It's just once again based on nothing but bluffs and speculation. Maybe the gun just wasn't in a convenient location. We know it was in the tower. And you know. It only makes sense to keep it somewhere actually accessible. It wasn't going anywhere. She could have easily taken her time to go and fetch it from wherever. It certainly would be more reasonable than confronting a potential serial killer with subpar weapons. Stop tainting my case. I will allow myself to point out how meaningless this is. There is no way for us to determine whatever reasoning the victim employed at that moment. That's dodging the issue, and you know it. Then I will query you. Does this make any more sense in your asinine scenario? Supposing the victim intended to murder you, the gun would have been a more effective means to accomplish that. Incorrect. The spray really was meant to clean up blood. She was clearly aiming for discretion. The gun would have been too loud for that. I suppose it is no surprise you do not know the first thing about discretion. In case you forgot, both you and the victim were plainly seen entering the crime scene. There was no shortage of witnesses at the event, and the victim was well aware of it. Do you think nobody would have asked any questions if she was the only one to return? Laughable. No matter what the victim intended to do, keeping the incident secret hardly could have been the aim. Oh, well. Guess we both lose then. It seems like neither version of the victim's intentions have managed to adequately explain the gun. Without a readily apparent explanation, we can only speculate. Nothing changed. Miss Chase still has zero evidence for any of her slander. Are you serious? How is that not a huge issue with your case? Because there are a myriad of explanations for why she might not have used it. Maybe she forgot where she placed it, or for some reason found the knife sufficient. Maybe she didn't actually know how to use a gun. Are these good? Like the explanations, I won't deny that they are not. But in absence of any superior idea, we will have to settle for them. It seems this is as far as this objection can go. Please resume the cross-examination. Oh boy, here we go again. Are you kidding me? I thought I was onto something. Fine, have it your way. Don't think I'm done tearing your case apart, though. How long do all of you intend to continue this farce? Even you must have realized that this line of argumentation is guaranteed to be perpetually fruitless. What do you mean, Miss Preston? The defendant's new approach to discrediting my case is more illogical than anything prior. She's attempting to take a handful of phenomena, the victim's actions, and simply claim them senseless. In more precise terms, she is trying to question the victim's motives, and therein lies the fallacy. Another person's thoughts is one of the most unknowable nomenclature. They're one of the most unprovable things. She's not wrong. But still, one of the most unprovable things. I am not so certain you are thinking anything at all, Aurelia. I do not think you can prove me wrong. What's your point? Like it or not, the victim's motives are kind of vital here. I would dispute that, but I will descend to your mental level and ask you a simple question. Was Hegel a realist or anti-realist with regards to metaphysical knowledge? What? Perfectly timed. How is that a simple question? Precisely. Hegel did describe himself as an idealist and subscribed to so-called absolute idealism. Yet I have seen many people argue that he was actually a realist if you read his works a certain way. An asinine debate that never manages to progress anywhere. Because the subject is long dead, he can no longer provide any information. If what he left behind wasn't clear enough to the average mind, they will argue in circles for eternity. You lost me on a much more fundamental level, but whatever floats your boat, woman. Of course, the answer is readily apparent to anyone with a modicum of my intelligence. Hegel was a flat-headed, insipid, nauseating, illiterate charlatan. No clue who you are, Hegel, but I can relate. What are you trying to say? The but it's pointless to talk about this because the victim is dead. I don't think being dead allows you to be immune to scrutiny. Again with the based commentary. What are you indulging in is pseudo-reasoning and abstract speculation. The victim cannot be called to the stand for hopefully obvious reasons. She can no longer explain why she set up that security check, or why she didn't use her gun. Which is why those actions need to speak for themselves. Do you still not comprehend what I explained to you a minute ago? Clearly her actions are too arcade to be taken one way or the other. She didn't use the gun, which may seem strange, but it doesn't support your murder thesis either. I get it. These are facts that are strange, but they are facts that may not directly be relevant to us. She set up a security check of questionable purposes. Again, this does not help her with murder. Yes, you may have called into question that the victim was worried about her safety. Yet there is nothing here that makes your murder thesis any less speculative. I mean, it still casts doubt on the testimony, at the very least. The plaintiff's testimony was about your theory being baseless before you derailed it, as usual. You have done nothing to deny that original point. I'm getting there. Did you have to point it out? As you mention it, we've certainly strayed from what we were talking about before. Miss Chase, I don't really understand where you are trying to go with this. You proposed a spontaneous murder plot, but none of these issues even pertain to that. The gun might be an odd point, but otherwise it's fairly immaterial what the victim was doing before today. Sorry, I had to settle for any issue I found. Look on your face says everything. It was a bluff all along. Color me unsurprised. Can we end this? It's time to collect the winnings. That was just hot air after all. Should have seen it coming, really. Yeah, she's a slippery one. Let's book her already. Oh, I'm losing my momentum. Damn it, I thought she'd let something useful slip. These issues at best put a tiny crack in her version of events. Something is off here, I know it. These events have to fit into the bigger picture somehow. Anything you'd like to say in your defense, Miss Chase? Or has all this just been an attempt to stall? The issues I pointed out are actually very relevant, Your Honor. Time to wing it. At first glance, there is no way that a gun being bought beforehand could factor into the victim's plan. After all, I proposed that she only conceived this plan when she saw me today. However, what if in reality all of this was much more premeditated? Oh boy. What transient reasoning. You really do love to change wherever you deem it convenient. That's not very fair. Of course I'll adjust my thoughts based on new information. Only someone very conceited would insist on having been right all the time. You mean these actions reveal a premeditated plan by the victim? I hope you're not just trying to say something shocking. Logically, it seems very impossible Mrs. Holden could have known I'd be here in advance. I've only let that info slip in the group chat of the Queens of Crime. That limits the number of people that knew that the three, Lillian, Claire, and Russian Spider Girl. Ah yes, Lillian and Claire would never leak this to anyone. Not sure about the new girl, but Claire vouched for her. Could this be related to that potential stalking I noticed? For now, it's not important how Mrs. Holden knew. Let's assume she found out somehow. I think I've said it clearly enough. Thankfully, even the standards of this court are not that unelevated. I'll be generous and start with a marginally easier point. Surely you must concede that this security check would still not be relevant at all. The victim ordered the guard to specifically note down suspicious items. There can very much be a deeper purpose to that if you think about it. Please let us know the reason, then. What would the security check have accomplished for this plot? I bought a weapon, Mrs. Holden had no weapon, or make guard look incompetent. Okay, the obvious answer, I bought a weapon. The check established that I brought a gun with me. Evidently, a 5-year-old could have reasoned out that much. How does that serve any plan in any manner at all? Now wait just a second. They actually turned their own case around on them? It's pretty obvious what this accomplished. Just think about the current case. After all, that fact severely incriminates me. Huh? I'm not sure I follow, Miss Chase. I thought you were talking about a plan to murder you, not a frame-up. Why not both? As pointed out earlier, there would have been no easy way to carry out this murder quietly. However, if I provably brought a gun with me, it would be much easier to excuse it. Excuse it, you say? She had a gun. I was just defending myself. Mrs. Holden could have argued something like that. What patent speculative nonsense. Hang on, let her cook. So you want to claim that the intent was to frame you? Regardless, this still does not explain why the victim purchased a gun. Right, the gun she bought is the strongest point against the plaintiff's case. If we can find an actual reason for why she decided not to use it, this might have a leg to stand on. Ms. Holden did not end up using this gun. It suggests that it might have been some kind of contingency. The gun was a backup plan in case... oh, wow. Lots here. I didn't show up. I didn't sneak into the study. I challenged her to a duel. I didn't bring a gun. Alright. The key point here is that I brought my gun. However, there was no guarantee that I would. I presumed Mrs. Holden kept a spare gun, in case I wouldn't show up with one. Why was it so important that a gun was involved? Because her plan required me to have one. Like I said before, she wanted to make it look like self-defense. It's important that I had a firearm, and she merely a knife. My goodness. All this was planned out? Could that really be? Obviously bluffing. There's no coherent plan here. Well, let me explain the whole idea from the top. Time to push back at full force. Contrary to what I thought before, Mrs. Holden was already aware that I would show up today. Motive remains the same, however. She thought I was planning to come here to look into her shady business. I must have also known I owned the gun, prompting her to buy one herself. Now, if I hadn't brought my gun, she would have slipped her own into the study. But since I did bring it, which she could confirm with this guard, that wasn't necessary. The plan was, from the start, to kill me while I was looking around, and then make it look like self-defense. Remember how the auction got stopped? Mrs. Holden showed us the knife would be the next item for sale. Which makes it feel like it would make sense for her to have it on her. It's a little questionable. Why would she spoil that surprise just before deciding to take a break? So this was part of her calculations as well. She wanted to show that she just happened to have that knife on her person at the time. During the break, I did indeed go into the study as she predicted. Here's where the gun comes in. Even if I was trespassing, it would have looked bad if she just stabbed an unarmed person. That's why she had that gun to potentially plant, if push came to shove. Me bringing my own gun was more ideal for her, of course. Which is what ended up happening, explaining why she bought a gun but didn't use it. That may explain those points away, but the plan is utterly idiotic. You bringing your own gun was ideal, you suggest. The fact you brought your gun is how she ended up getting shot. We discussed this before. She definitely aimed to take me by complete surprise. If she hadn't accidentally made a sound, I'd have cleanly gotten my neck sliced without ever seeing her. Unsettling to think about how close a call that was. Speaking of clean, this ties into the reason she bought the spray. What I'm aware of, blood pattern analysis is pretty advanced these days. Depending on the stains produced, would have given away that my neck got sliced from behind. Mrs. Holden intended to clean up the scene accordingly to obscure this. Once that had been done, we can imagine what was likely meant to be the final step. Probably intended to fire a shot at the wall, or even to shoot herself in a non-lethal spot. That would have attracted everyone to the scene, and really sold the struggle. Probably intended. Might have done this or that. It really always is the same non-logic with you. You cannot point to a single fact that even remotely suggests someone intended to frame you. Funny you'd ask, because there actually is one thing. Something we talked about at great length earlier in this trial, as a matter of fact. Turns out all that still wasn't enough for Mrs. Holden. Someone could have very well suspected she used the gun on herself, which is why she prepared one more trick to establish me as the culprit to anyone listening. The whole TV trick did... Is it the TV? Where's the TV go? There's the TV. Yeah, it's TV. Earlier we established that a show with a voice that sounds like mine happened to be on the air at the time. Indeed, the Reaper Show. What about it? I think it was Reap What You Sow, anyways, which is another reference I do not recall. I remember seeing it discussed, but I don't recall the specifics of the reference. That show really just happened to be on at the time. I suppose that rather than being an unlikely coincidence, that actually happened by design. Another common and surprising argument. By design, but who could have planned for something like that? Are you suggesting someone from that TV channel's involved with this? Oh god, no. Nobody would have been able to predict when the break would happen. To have any chance of reliably using the trick, you need to have control of the auction schedule. It could have been employed by one person only, the host, Mrs. Holden. Could have very much timed the break to match up with the show. If she knew the script, you just needed to then turn up the volume on the TV at the right moment. Perfect way to fake an altercation in which I sounded like an aggressor. The recording and only a half-broken TV in the room, nobody would have even questioned it. And that is the full extent of the plan to frame me. Well, that's quite a lot. We're gonna get dinged on proof. All of what you said is merely projection. Your asinine theory is that the victim tried to kill you and have it appear to be self-defense. That is precisely what you are pathetically attempting yourself right now. Pass off your murder as justified. Can you prove me wrong? Fortunately, that is not how matters work. Even if we were to brainlessly suppose that everything you proposed was true, are you not forgetting something? The entirety of this hypothetical plan relies on you illegally entering the study first. You would be firmly in the wrong either way. Even if this plan existed, nothing of it ever played out. Mrs. Holden did not kill you. She did not use your gun to fake an attack on herself. You drew a gun and shot the victim while trespassing. That is simply the end of the story. You're saying it makes no difference whatsoever. I hope she doesn't have a point. I feel like she might. Miss Preston has a point. Figures. It is possible that Mrs. Holden was planning to do something like this. This appears to be immaterial to your culpability for the crimes you committed. As mentioned earlier, the victim is illegally presumed to have acted in self-defense. In order to prove otherwise, one would have to show Mrs. Holden used unreasonable force. Given that you drew your gun during the confrontation, that would be quite difficult to prove indeed. We add the fact that you were not in the pace. You were lawfully allowed to be. It becomes almost impossible for you to enter a self-defense plea yourself. Thank you for siding with justice, Your Honor. It would be outrageously stupid if any burglar could claim self-defense that easily. Such nonsense. This trial shouldn't be stained by it. Let me spell out why none of your claims matter. It. Unwinnable gamble. Oh boy. Nice try, but none of the things in your theorized plan actually happened. Even if they were meant to, your guilt is still a safe bet. Again, simple and clean. It wouldn't hurt to be a little more elaborate if just once. Why would I say anything beyond the essence of my point? You can't keep getting away with this. Do you know the best method to never lose a gamble? Not playing in the first place, I guess? You have to play, of course. Hedged bets. I've already accounted for every possible way you could argue against this, and I made sure I lose in absolutely none of them. Sounds just like Victoria. I can see how this girl hired her. Let me make something clear, Miss Chase. You tried arguing you didn't fire the shot, which went nowhere. Now you've tried portraying the matter as self-defense, which has also gone nowhere. Been rather lenient so far due to the unconventional nature of this trial. However, I will not tolerate much more of this. Are we understood? I understand, Your Honor. Has all of this just made things worse? Whenever I try to take a step forward, I'm then set back 2 steps. Better find some breathing room before this oppressive trial suffocates me. This is going to be a lot to try and shake up here. I mean, let's see where we can get. I theorized this plan based on events you yourself admitted to. You mean like buying a gun? Is that a crime now? It's firing the gun that's criminal, but that's not something she did now, is it? Well, it is she intended to use it in a crime. Mens rea is not sufficient without the act. You naturally lack the qualifications to know that. Indeed, you can't be found guilty of an attempted crime for merely intending to do it. Must be accompanied by an action, and this action must go beyond preparation. You see, the cards you hold are totally worthless. This plan would have only become criminal the moment Mother tried to stab you in the back. That's not what happened now, is it? You turned around before anything violent went down. Mother never stabbed you. She didn't shoot herself. And she never framed you with the TV. Without that, you've got absolutely nothing to pin on her. Do you want to argue about any of this? Didn't stab me, didn't shoot herself, didn't use the TV. Didn't stab me. Can you add that part about the victim not stabbing me to your testimony? Here we go again, I guess. We've got no choice but to waste everyone's time. Yes, we certainly will. Let's just press this before we start going on this. Enough to agree to disagree. Are you serious right now? Do you need me to spell this out again? Sure, that might help me understand. Please just give me something to work with. You're clearly in denial. Here's what the cards on the table say. 1. You were the only other person who entered that room, which was breaking the law. Not even you ever disputed this. 2. The gunshot is the only lethal wound. Your gun. Let's remember that it came from that. 3. Well, it didn't come to harm you in any other way, except by your actions. Only yours. Stop denying the obvious. You killed her, and there's no excuse you can make. I can't really look any worse at this point, so maybe I should risk looking into one of these. Oh, wow, okay. We've got lots to get pedantic with here. Only one who entered the room. No, the door's locked. Yeah, can't deny that. Gunshot is the only lethal wound. Is it though? Gunshot. Small cut on tip of index finger. Gunshot. Gunshot was the only lethal wound. Could you elaborate on that? Oh, I know some people who are going to love this. Good idea. That's something I will gladly add to my testimony. You didn't have to go that far. Oh no, let's really make that point as clear as possible. The gunshot wound is the only lethal wound, and the bullet came from your gun. Hello? I mean, the rifling marks were only a 91% match, right? Are you actually desperate enough to bring that up now? Good luck convincing anyone that a gun with nearly identical rifling marks was in the room somehow. If you think you know better than an actual expert, by all means. Let's try a different angle. How certain are we that the gunshot actually killed the victim? The expert technically just noted cardiac arrest as the cause of death. She's annoyingly painstaking with her results, even if the conclusions should be obvious. Wonder what caused this cardiac arrest? Maybe the bullet that pierced her heart. How do I put this? Well, duh. What if she spontaneously suffered a heart attack just before I shot? Oh boy. Just saying, there are some options. Justice really is slow. Anyone with moderate intellect would have found you guilty by now. And if she did suffer a heart attack with such asinine timing, you would still be responsible. The altercation would have doubtlessly been the source of any aggravation. It might be hard to deflect the blame off me with this. That the self-defense angle not working out, I might have to look at alternatives like that. Alright. Need to say, but her argument is as solid as it is concise. I don't think I'll be able to keep aiming for a simple self-defense argument. I can really only do what I've done last time. Press, then try to find some consistency. Won't be as easy as last time. If they need a new angle, anything to reveal a new aspect of this case, a new area to explore. Can't end here. There's so much this girl and Victoria don't even want to talk about. And what happened during the last break? Why won't you talk to me? Mrs. Holden's blood was found on the handle. You did try to take some swings at me. Yes, we heard the eyewitnesses. You fought back after you turned around and drew a gun. It was perfectly reasonable for her to fear for her life. It made no indication that I actually wanted to shoot her, though. She could have just backed away instead of trying to kill me. The victim had no duty to retreat in her own home. All her actions were justified. As per the castle doctrine. Sustained. What up here with that stupid doctrine? Is that being used right? Okay, legal duty to retreat is just when the individual fails to retreat from a confrontation, which is possible to do so safely, they lose the right to use deadly force for self-defense. So if they're reading Arethia's argument as she could have backed off when I pulled a gun on her, legally, she could still use deadly force on you. Now, logically, if someone pulls a gun on me, I'm not coming any closer. It's a different matter. It's a different matter entirely. So even anything I can say against those facts? It's just bound to be ruled in the victim's favor. I'm making a poker face, but I can see you're sweating. Face it, you can't get out of this. Let's see what else we can get out of this. Didn't stab me, didn't shoot herself. I shouldn't even entertain didn't shoot herself. Yeah, that's just kind of silly. Didn't use the TV. Can you add the part about victim not using the TV to your testimony? Alright, waste everyone's time. Solve it. Good call. Keeping my testimony clean this time. I feel like I still want to get this out of the way and present the autopsy report. Okay, won't work. You can see there's quite an issue if you consider this evidence. And able to see anything of the sort, Mr. Oh no, wrong statement. Those at the top of the bell curve will struggle to understand her ostensible logic. I naturally predicted this type of desperate move. I see. Alright. Please look your report makes sense next time. Yeah. Only lethal wound. I accidentally pressed the wrong statement. Shoot. Drat. Alright. Well. Don't know how we get there, though. So I feel like the angle we have to take... The part of this that we haven't addressed yet is the blood... Although we may have vaguely mentioned that she nicked herself here. I'll try this. Am I explaining again how I'm the only one that harmed the victim? Good idea. That's something I will gladly add to my test. Alright. We'll replace. How would you know that for sure? I raised you the autopsy report. It does mention some other wounds aside from just the gunshot, right? If they're not lethal per se, doesn't that leave room for multiple people harming the victim? Can't be serious. How'd I put this? Those were obviously caused by your struggle with my mother. They're still on you. I can't know that. You know that you have nothing to say or show otherwise. Last time I checked, there was no other fight my mother was involved in yesterday. Accept it. Nobody else contributed to her death. Your fault. 100%. Clear as crystal. Really a bit of a long shot. If there's anything that might ever just slightly take some of the guilt off of me... Oh, this is sneaky. This is sneaky. Let's read through this. Lewis Garn, respiratory failure, gunshot wound to throat, horizontal angle of entry, bullet damaged trachea causing blood to enter the airways, bruises on chest, arms, and back, bulletproof vest hit by 4 bullets, 5 bullets, 99% match to the gun found on the floor nearby. Those and bruises indicate a struggle. Body was firing, face up, near a broken display stand, base of the stand is damaged, black panels coming loose. Only draw this weapon if you are truly prepared to kill. Glass below the subject raises likelihood that it was broken before he died. Small trace of Melanie Holden's blood found on the edge of the case. Dental baton found lodged beneath the body, retracted state. Traces of blood, small ink stain. Subject's blood. That is alarmingly good art. Alright. It was almost there. This is a stretch even by my standards, but if I play it right... That is factually wrong. I'm not the only one that harmed the victim. Next bluff. Here it comes. This is no bluff, Miss Holden. If anyone tried to bluff their way through things, it's Victoria over there. After all, she tried to skim past a pretty important detail in this. The autopsy? You can't just baselessly claim those wounds weren't all caused by your struggle with my mother. Mistaken. This is the second autopsy. One performed on Mr. Garn. Victim you all don't want to talk about. I don't see how that relates to what harm came to our victim, Miss Chase. Delves in the details. Read carefully, Your Honor. Whose blood was found on the nearby display case? Mrs. Holden's? Not sure if Victoria hoped I'd consider that as a typo or something. There's no way the detective could make such a mistake. He seems like the type to triple-check everything. We need to appreciate 2 facts here. Our victim's blood is on that display case. And I have absolutely no access to that lower floor, ever. Seems like someone other than me harmed Mrs. Holden after all. Asinine as always, that may have been a mere accident for what it is even worth. Elucidate us. How would the victim have ever lost this tiny bit of blood? Certainly not from her deep chest wound. It'd have to have been from the cut on her finger, I suppose. Indeed, if you're able to see that, maybe you also see how decidedly inconsequential this is. Yeah, who cares about that some tiny cut in her hand? Big deal. What, I'm going to say that killed her somehow? Well... It seems unlikely, but this is my chance to form a connection to the other crime scene. I have to make this work. We cannot rule it out. We cannot rule out it killed the victim. The autopsy does not specifically say the gunshot was the cause of death. It's cardiac arrest, which was obviously caused by the bullet in her heart. I'm not sure I quite follow what you're trying to suggest, Mrs. Chase. Surely you're not saying a small cut like that could be relevant. And what if I was? How? How would a small cut like that result in her death? What if something like this was involved? Poison! Even a small cut could be deadly depending on what enters the body through it. The right poison or venom might have very well killed her. What complete gibberish. Poison. Really. I will allow myself to dismiss this by invoking Hitchin's razor. Once again in English, please. What has a razor got to do with this? How could I ever forget you are not familiar with any concepts of epistemology? Perhaps you have at least heard of Russell's teapot. Quod gratis asseritur gratis negatur. What part of it in English was unclear to you? It really shouldn't be too hard to comprehend. What may be asserted without evidence might as well be dismissed without evidence. There's absolutely nothing backing up this ridiculous poison claim. Nothing in the autopsy remotely suggests it. Do you seriously believe we will simply accept this? Sounds to me like you have no way to contradict my claim either. But one, the onus probandi decidedly rests with you. Don't think you can fool with an appeal to ignorance. You do not have the burden to disprove your unproven nonsense. I need to get violent. I got the message. There's actually one thing in this autopsy report backing me up on this. If you'd stop interrupting me before I finish my points, that'd be helpful. The victim's autopsy supports a poisoning theory. That possibility is never even mentioned in the report. We're obviously dealing with something subtle here, but there is one thing in that report which cannot be explained by the gunshot hypothesis. It's something that the poison might be able to make sense of. That's be your worst bluff yet. Call. Show us the part that you think backs you up. Sure. I'll call. The part right here could be explained by poison in the victim's system. Oh, God. Expand. Hello, here's the whole autopsy report. Figure it out. Now solve puzzles. Do it. Where's the thing here? Heavy amounts of sweat. I'll point at sweat. This right here. The victim's face was covered in an uncanny amount of sweat. Something that does not track with a light struggle she had at best. A poisonous substance might just have been able to cause that kind of symptom. Is really doubling down on this? I say that's still a total stretch. It's true that sweat is not accounted for by the plaintiff's version of events. Oh, do you think this makes any more sense? You think this isn't an excuse to say my mother conveniently died from poison before she was shot? I didn't say that, but someone poisoned a display case and my mother cut herself on it. That's just, how do I put this? Complete nonsense. That's what. I'd say we let the detective clean up this mess right away. Easy confirmation. She can clarify whether my mother could have been poisoned or not. We will do no such thing. What? You're going to let this stand? Again? You are not calm enough to make this decision. What do you think it is that Aurelia wants the most at this moment? I don't know. If you do not even fight her ridiculous claim. She has enough self-awareness to know how easily such asinine theories are disproven. What is she really aiming to acquire is further testimony. The detective is called to the stand. Aurelia will certainly press her with various relevant queries. Given Dr. Hellinger's inclination to avoid assumptions, I have no doubt some possibility will be conceded. I will not subscribe to any more of her headache-inducing maneuvers. Shame. Your stubbornness means that you only have the report itself to lean on. Did anyone giving an alternate explanation for this sweat, my point is backed. You believe you have any ground to stand on with this? You say poison was on that display case, and how come Dr. Hellinger made no mention of it? Who knows? It could be something that's very hard to detect even with her equipment. I'm free to call her to the stand so we can ask her about it. You've got to be kidding me. Whatever then, you don't need her to take care of this. There could only be poison on that case if somebody actually had a chance to put it there. That lower floor has been locked for ages. Nobody even had access to it. Nobody had access to that floor? I disagree. This person recently demonstrated that they very much have access to the lower floor. Is it her? Well, can't deny that, but that would be a little too ridiculous of a suicide. About this person. Incorrect. Let's leave ghost sightings out of this for now. It's a simpler and more effective option. There you go. Ah. Even holding my intelligence to Victoria, she's got it covered already. Oh, okay, boom. Usually demonstrate they have access to the lower floor. What? About this person. You? I do not like the implications of that. Well, I can't say I'm too fond of you suing me either. Yes, it evens out. What are we implying exactly? It's pretty straightforward, Your Honor. Given that nobody had access to the lower floor holds absolutely no water. If that were true, how come we were able to send people to investigate it? Ah, yes. Our captor generously enabled the elevator access. I assume both she and her mother are capable of it. If she was able to do it now, who's to say she didn't do it before? You set up a poisonous trap, for example. Okay, we are outrageous. Don't even begin to describe this atrocious accusation. Impossibilities are of no consequence. Or they can even head down there and touch that display case just before the auction. The reason doesn't matter much now, does it? The blood is clear proof she was there. Alright, we are spiraling. We will continue this next time.